Today I'm going to take you the sessions like object-oriented program using the Python. Myself ARIPUNISHABEE, MCA Assistant Professor in Computer Science, Theivanai Ammal College for Women. Today I'm going to take about the classes like object-oriented programming in Python. Today we see about the abstract like introductions to object-oriented programming in Python, and another one is the difference between the objects and procedural programming languages, and classes and objects, and the major concepts like object-oriented programming methodologies of inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, and abstractions. These are abstracts. We are going to start with these abstracts. For going to do that, introductions to object-oriented programming in Python. Generally, what is object-oriented programming in Python? It is an object-oriented programming is a way of computer programming using the idea of objects to represent the data and methods, because it is also called as an approach used for creating a neat and reusable code instead of an redundant code. Before going to this object-oriented programming in Python, we see about what is object-oriented programming. In this object-oriented programming, we have so many modules. If one module is affected in programming language, it will affect the all modules. But in OOP, object-oriented programming, if one module is affected, it does not affect all module. It runs its own process way. It will skip that affected modules. These are the main reason we are using the object-oriented programming, and we are using like a what is mean by procedural oriented programming and object oriented programming. Difference between today we see about difference between object oriented and procedural oriented programming. Here the difference is there. Like object oriented programming is it is a bottom up approach, and procedural oriented programming it is a top down approach. We will compare to the OP and procedural oriented programming. Program is divided into object. It will split the modules in part by part by using with the classes. But procedural oriented programming, program is divided into functions. Okay, the program is divided into functions. Make use of the access modifiers. In object oriented, we uses the access modifiers like a public, private, and protected. Public, it doesn't mean it will access the overall classes. It will access overall classes like everyone can access the public class, but private class we will access only the secured persons and protected. For example, one organization's people can access those classes. Apart from that, unwanted classes. Like here in procedural oriented programming, we don't use the access modifiers, and also in object oriented it is a more secure, and procedural it is a less secure. Object can move freely within a member function, but procedural data can move freely from functions to functions within the programs. And also it supports the in OOP it supports the inheritance, and the procedurals it doesn't support the inheritance. Next we move on to the classes and objects. What is a class? Its class is nothing but a class is a collection of objects, or you can say it is a blueprint of the objects defining the common attributes and behaviors. Now the question arises, how do you do that? Class is defined under a class keyword. For example, here I write it like class and class 1. Class 1 is nothing but it is a class name. We call like a class like this. Class is nothing but it is a collection of objects. Okay, or otherwise we will call it as a blueprint of an object. Okay, next we move on to the objects, creating an objects. Before going to that, object is an instance of a class. Okay, here is an example is there. Here class is there, and employee is a class name, def end, and that function I creating the function, and also the second name is a self is an instance of a class, and then here I created objects like emp1 is equal to employee. This is an objects. Here finally I print the dictionaries. And then next class, the most important classes in object oriented programming like inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, and abstraction. These are the these can be plays a major role in this object oriented programming in methodology. Okay, we move towards to the inheritance. Inheritance means nothing but the base class is derived from the child class. A parent class is derived from the child class. If ever heard of this dialogue from relatives, you look exactly like your father or mother. The reason behind this is called as an inheritance. Yeah, from this programming aspect is generally means inheriting or transferring of the characteristic from parent to child class without any modification. The new classes is called as a derived or child class, and one from which is derived from the parent class is also like a base class. Already I told that inheritance is it's derived from the parent class, like a base class is derived from the child class. And next, we see the types of inheritance. What are the types of inheritance is there? Mainly, what are the types of inheritance? It is like a single inheritance and multiple inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, and multi-level inheritance. We see about single inheritance. Single inheritance, it's nothing but it has an one base class and one derived class. It derived from the parent class only. Okay, next we move towards the multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance is nothing but it has an one base class and one derived has more than one intermediate class. In hierarchical inheritance, we see about one base class and more than two child classes there. And then multiple inheritance, we have then more than one parent class is there and only one child class is there. These are the types of inheritance. Next, moving towards the polymorphism. You just all must have used GSP, right, for navigating the route. Isn't it amazing how many different routes you come across for the same designations depending upon the traffic? From a programming point of view, this is called as an polymorphism. It is one such OOP methodology where one task can be performed in several different ways. To put in the simple words, it is a property of an objects which allows in the take multiple forms. We move towards polymorphisms types. There are the two types in polymorphism. One is compile time polymorphism and another one is a runtime polymorphism. A compile time polymorphism is nothing but is also called as a polymorphism which gets resolved during the time of the program. One commonly example like overloading, it's called as a method overloading. Okay, and then we move towards the second type. It is called as a runtime polymorphism. A runtime polymorphism is also called as a dynamic polymorphism where it gets resolved into a runtime. One common example of the runtime polymorphism is also called as a method overriding. These are the types in polymorphism. We next towards moving towards the next slide, like abstraction. Abstraction is nothing but suppose you booked a movie ticket from Books My Show using net banking or any other process. You do not know the procedure of how the PIN is generated or how the verification is done. This is called abstraction. From the programming aspects, it is basically means you only show the implementation details of a particular process and hide the details from the user. This is called as an abstraction. Okay, these are the concepts in object oriented programming language. Thank you.